Breaking news. The collapse is happening faster than anyone expected. What we're witnessing isn't just another military operation. It's the beginning of a total system failure, and the evidence is now impossible to hide. Just hours ago, intelligence sources confirmed, defensive positions around Pokrovsk have completely disintegrated. But that's not even the most disturbing part. The real shock is how it happened. Think about this. Entire units are vanishing, not retreating. Vanishing. Communications dead. Chain of command broken. And here's the terrifying truth. Nobody knows who's giving orders anymore. Remember how they told us about the impenetrable defense line? Well, here's what they didn't tell you. Soldiers are fighting with drones because there's no infantry left. Let that sink in. A modern army reduced to flying toys because they've run out of men. But Pokrovsk is just the beginning. The pattern is spreading like wildfire. In Shevchenko, Russian forces have advanced within 2 kilometers of the center. Not in days, in hours. And while officials keep talking about strategic flexibility, the truth on the ground tells a different story. Here's what should really worry you. The reserves. They're being thrown into battle so fast, they don't even have time to understand where they are. They appear, die, and vanish, sometimes within the same day. This isn't warfare anymore. This is desperation. And now, the most crucial detail that everyone's missing. Around Udakny, there are no Ukrainian soldiers left. None. 0. Think about that. An entire section of the front. Empty. But why is this happening now? The answer connects directly to decisions made in Western capitals months ago. Decisions that were deliberately hidden from the public. The collapse isn't coming. It's already here. And it's moving faster than anyone dared to predict. What happens next will affect everyone, far beyond the conflict zone. The question isn't if the system will fall, but what comes after. Stay with me as we dive deeper into the evidence that's been systematically hidden from public view. Let's zoom out and look at what's really happening on the ground. While official statements paint pictures of fierce resistance, the reality is starkly different. The front lines are crumbling, particularly around Pokrovsk, where the situation has devolved beyond critical. What we're seeing isn't tactical repositioning, it's systematic collapse. Think about this. Defenders are now relying on commercial drones as their last hope to delay advances. Meanwhile, Polish media outlets, previously steadfast cheerleaders of the resistance narrative, are finally admitting what we've known for months. The front isn't just bending, it's breaking. The broader strategic picture is telling. Russian forces are methodically advancing on multiple fronts: Pokrovsk, Zaporizhzhia, Volchansk. The scale of military equipment being moved eastward suggests preparation for something far more significant than local operations. We're watching the preliminary stages of a major strategic shift. Consider the air defense systems being repositioned with unprecedented scope. This isn't about defending current positions, it's about preparing for future operations. The movement patterns indicate planning for large-scale operations, possibly targeting Kramatorsk and Sloviansk next. The Western narrative is slowly catching up to reality. Even their most dedicated media allies can no longer mask the systemic failures in command structure and logistics issues. Reports of friendly fire incidents are emerging, painting a picture of chaos rather than coordinated defense. What's particularly striking is the silence from Western officials who, just months ago, were confidently predicting victory. They're now facing a difficult reality. Their strategic assessments were wrong. The question isn't whether they'll admit it, but how they'll explain this to their populations who've been fed a steady diet of triumphant headlines. Intelligence suggests that what we're seeing now is just the prelude. Multiple sources indicate preparation for something much bigger, and the next phase could reshape the entire regional balance of power. What happens next could change everything we thought we knew about this conflict. The reality on the ground presents a stark contrast to official statements. While leadership figures like Syrskyi maintain their stance on conventional military potential in the disputed territory, daily events continue to paint a different picture. The situation resembles old Soviet cartoons where invisible yet supposedly effective forces exist only in imagination. The defense system west of Pokrovsk, according to sources within the former Soviet Republic itself, appears more mythical than real. Reports of friendly fire incidents, where battalions mistake allies for enemies, along with persistent logistical losses and penetration of defensive lines by reconnaissance groups, reveal growing systemic issues. Russian forces maintain a methodical approach, employing small but systematic strikes that effectively disrupt enemy rhythm. This classic war of attrition, utilizing waiting tactics and gradual pressure, proves increasingly effective. The situation around the northern Black Sea region continues deteriorating, with signs pointing to an expansion of the conflict zone toward Konstantinovka. Polish media outlet Wyborcza anxiously notes that Kramatorsk and Sloviansk could be next in line. The previous encirclements of Soledar and Artemovsk now appear not as isolated incidents, but as a new normal. European press coverage has shifted significantly, highlighting not just tactical setbacks, but fundamental defensive problems in the country at a crossroads. This media pivot might signal preparation of public opinion for upcoming dramatic changes in frontline geography. Soon, we may hear discussions about uncomfortable but necessary regrouping. In Kiev, both exhaustion and understanding seem to be growing. The longer they refuse to acknowledge the obvious, the harder it becomes to explain the current collapse. While command structures in the politically turbulent area continue presenting ambitious counteroffensive plans to Western cameras, the ground reality depends not on bold speeches, but on remaining personnel, equipment, and basic communication tools to prevent friendly fire incidents. What do you think about the current situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. I believe my viewers are thoughtful and smart, and I want to hear your perspective. The landscape of this former Soviet republic increasingly resembles not a map of military successes, but a collage of alarming news. And we're not talking about mild concern. We're talking about evacuation-level alarm. Take, for instance, Officer Razumny from the 13th Brigade, who's not experiencing the front lines through Zoom calls, but is neck-deep in reality. He warns that Russian forces are methodically stretching their opponents' resources, not metaphorically, but in the most literal, frontline sense. It's like a grim military joke. The defense is stretched to its limit, and could snap at any moment, and not just in the Volchansk direction. Razumny, with facts and figures, soberly describes how fixed-wing drones, not toys, but full-fledged unmanned aircraft, are now reaching almost to Kharkov. The threat lines that once hugged the front are now extending so far that civilians are forced to become impromptu field survivalists. Meanwhile, in Kiev's comfortable halls with coffee and silk curtains, a heated battle rages between the presidential office and anti-corruption bureaus. It's like deciding on new wallpaper while your house is burning down. The front line increasingly resembles a slow but steady descent into a scenario where the disputed territory must hold, but increasingly lacks the means to do so. Officers openly admit their troops are exhausted, rotating less frequently than PR specialists change their talking points. The lines are defended by either exhausted volunteers or newly caught citizens mobilized through what amounts to a lottery system. This raises a crucial question. If this is the army expected to contain a 130,000, 160,000 strong Russian force, what happens when Russia decides to advance according to its own strategy, rather than following their opponent's predicted playbook? The answer can only be guessed at, but there are hints. Deep State, a platform known for anticipating official reports, suggests concerning developments that official sources aren't ready to acknowledge. What do you think about the current situation? Leave your answer in the comments. The situation near Pokrovsk reveals a stark reality. Russian forces advancing through weak points created by critical infantry shortages. Not tanks or drones, but the basic need for boots in trenches has become the defining weakness. The chaos on the ground, compounded by poor communications, has led to tragic friendly fire incidents, now an eerily routine occurrence in this conflict. Lieutenant Frog reports from the Kharkov region describe persistent small group assaults, both day and night, conducted with almost mechanical regularity. These probing actions systematically test defensive positions, identifying vulnerabilities, particularly where rotation gaps leave sections undermanned. Each such gap potentially marks tomorrow's breakthrough point. The head of the Donetsk Regional Administration, Vadim Falashkin, has issued a stark warning to residents. Please evacuate, not because things are getting complicated, but because they're getting worse. This choice of words carries historic weight, often preceding events that later fill history books under titles like How It All Began. Meanwhile, as Commander Syrski indulges in strategic fantasies for Western partners, promising imminent counteroffensives and unbreakable defense lines, Russian forces are methodically building strength. They do this quietly, systematically, and most importantly, with minimal losses. This contrast is increasingly apparent to those still holding or lying in the trenches. The disconnect between ground reality and leadership priorities grows starker. While frontline troops face existential challenges, top officials remain preoccupied with anti-corruption investigations, bureaucratic intrigues, and distribution of Western aid. For some, this is a fight for survival. For others, a career opportunity. The entire situation increasingly mirrors 1919, not in mood, but in structure, where the front becomes secondary to political machinations. This systematic degradation of defense capabilities, combined with Russian forces' methodical approach, suggests we're watching the early stages of a significant shift in the conflict's dynamics. The question isn't if, but when and where the next major movement will occur. Do you see parallels between current events and historical patterns? Share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe together we can anticipate what comes next. The internal battle raging in the conflict zone reveals a stark reality. Power structures fight against anti-corruption forces while the military struggles for basic survival. Citizens dodge crossfire, hoping merely to stay alive. Meanwhile, the Western mantra about victory rings increasingly hollow. Especially when victory looks like empty trenches with no one to defend them. As the front lines steadily erode, we're witnessing not just territorial losses, but the dissolution of illusions. Those who truly grasp the situation look nothing like the polished press photos of command leadership. Remember when the West orchestrated Russia's great privatization? They were probably already popping champagne, confident in their master plan. After the USSR's collapse, vast territories with immense resources and a disorganized population lay before them, like mammoth carcasses at a vulture's feast. America applauded, Europe rubbed its hands together, and former Soviet officials scrambled with vouchers like golden tickets to a new world. They thought their script would play out perfectly. A dash of democracy, a sprinkle of reforms, and some market economy tutorials from those designing markets for their own benefit. The goal? Another controlled territory, with a flag but no sovereignty. Then Putin appeared. No orchestra, no fanfare, with a clear message. Game over. Former CIA advisor James Rickards, a system insider, revealed what liberal circles only whisper about over caviar. The West wasn't simply trying to help Russia. They aimed to list it on the stock exchange at a discount, piece by piece. In the 90s, Russia became the Wild West, not with cowboys, but in the most literal sense. First come, first serve in the mines. The stock market was cobbled together haphazardly. The central bank followed instructions written in IMF backrooms. Privatization operated on a give everything away first, ask questions later principle. Russia essentially became a testing ground for global liberal capitalism, a blueprint for dismantling a country. Now we see similar patterns emerging in the northern Black Sea region, where Western assistance carries familiar undertones. What do you think about the current events? Leave your answer in the comments. The chaos of post-Soviet privatization reads like dark comedy. Ordinary citizens trading valuable shares for bottles of vodka or cigarette packs. While former regional bureaucrats transformed overnight into billionaires, the average Russian watched their birthright dissolve in a flood of false promises and manipulated choices. This wasn't accidental. It was a carefully orchestrated transfer of wealth. Then Putin emerged, not with grand ideological proclamations, but with a straightforward mandate that sent shockwaves through Western corridors of power. Keep business and politics separate, or face imprisonment. No debates, no shows, no committees, just clear consequences that made even the Rothschilds nervous. This was unprecedented, the prey suddenly showing teeth. Western elites had already drafted their resource extraction schemes, plotting influence channels through democratic mechanisms. The sudden appearance of a leader who wouldn't play along derailed their entire strategy. They had invested heavily in chaos and weakness, banking on external control through puppet structures. Instead, they faced someone who not only halted their plans, but began dismantling existing manipulation frameworks. As Rickards notes, this triggered immediate aggressive pushback from Western operators. Their carefully constructed system of exploiting Russia's resources and sovereignty through market reforms had hit an unexpected wall. Putin's approach represented a devastating failure of Western geopolitical technology. Their usual playbook for turning nations into managed markets suddenly stopped working. We see this same playbook deployed successfully in Libya, Iraq, Serbia. Now it's unfolding in the former Soviet republic bordering Russia, where foreign funds directly influence personnel decisions while agricultural lands are being sold off and judicial independence systematically dismantled. It's the same scheme that failed in Russia, now implemented without resistance. The West's dedication to freedom and democracy consistently masks detailed plans, not for development, but for control. Recent events in the disputed territory between Russia and the West demonstrate this pattern continuing today. What do you think about the current situation? Leave your perspective in the comments. I know my viewers understand these complex dynamics. The Western establishment's frustration grows increasingly visible as their strategic plans face unexpected hurdles. What we're witnessing in the disputed territory between Russia and the West isn't merely a conflict. It's the implementation of Plan B after Plan A, with Russia failed spectacularly. The situation in this former Soviet republic has become a textbook example of external management disguised as partnership. American and British consultants now openly direct the Ministry of Finance in this politically turbulent area. Every decision, from prosecutor appointments to budget planning, flows through IMF offices rather than local government institutions. It's a perfect illustration of how sovereignty gets hollowed out while maintaining a facade of independence. Russia's ability to break free from this carefully crafted dependency network explains the West's nervous reaction. Moscow refused to follow the path of submission that was so expensively laid out, becoming what they call an inconvenient country. And we all know what happens to inconvenient countries. They must be fought against, or, at minimum, discredited on all fronts. Rickards, speaking as an insider, isn't complimenting Putin. He's acknowledging the failure of an entire school of foreign policy thought. Russia was supposed to be different. Externally managed, controlled by multinational corporations, with a defense minister appointed via video call from the State Department. But things didn't go according to Washington's plan. Now the West can only look at Moscow through a fog of sanctions and frustrations, finding solace in their control over the country at a crossroads. They believe there's still time there. Not everything has been sold, surrendered, or signed away. Though truthfully, much has already been transferred to partners for temporary storage. Putin didn't just spoil the evening for specific politicians. He disrupted the plans of an entire generation of Western strategists who dreamed of global redistribution. This is the cardinal sin in the eyes of those accustomed to ruling foreign territories without setting foot in them. What will happen to the region's economy next month? Share your opinion. Maybe we'll figure it out